Good evening and welcome to yet another episode of VI Voices. I'm Emile Henderson III and here with me, Natalie Nelson, Tang and Clint Ferris. Tonight we have an action-packed show. We have with us at least three individuals who will be as candidates for the Board of Elections. As you know, we've been having quite some interesting things going on within the last couple of months with the Elections Board, and we have at least three people. We've invited all of them, actually, who are vying for spots with the Board of Elections. Natalie Nelson has indicated that she is off island, will not be able to be here with us tonight, but she did indicate that she is running for that office because she wants transparency and for people to be able to understand the process and bring back integrity to the Board of Elections. We also sent our letters to Glenn Webster, who originally initially had agreed to be here, but we just found this evening that he decided that he was not going to come on the show tonight. And we had Lisa Harris Moorhead, who currently sits on the Board of Elections and has been a part of a lot of what's been going on lately as a defendant in some of the other cases. And she has indicated she would not be able to be here tonight. However, tonight we do have at least three individuals who have braved themselves to be here with us on VI Voices. We have Mr. Epiphan Joseph, Mr. Roland Molinar, and Ms. Krista Schluterman, who will be here tonight. You will have an opportunity to see them and see what they're about and what they plan to offer for the Board of Elections. But as we start every show, we start with hot topics.
What's buzzing tonight?
Emile, Natalie, today I was driving, and I think I was listening to the news. And I believe the legislature is thinking about criminalizing the act of officers, correction officers, having sexual relations with inmates. And I heard Senator Dow mention on the radio that the legislature should not be tackling an issue that is about morality. And I stopped because it's not an issue about morality. It's an issue of integrity of the system. And I believe policy isn't working. I think we need to criminalize it.
But is it something that should the legislature be policing or legislating things that are have an issue of integrity?
I think so, because our community is at a crossroads. And I think when people don't have faith in the judicial system, law enforcement, not even the Bureau of Correction, who actually deals with the end in terms of rehabilitation and incarceration, it becomes a problem. And
well, I can see how it becomes a problem necessarily with, I'm sure that there'll be two sides to this. I'm sure that there'll be one side that says, listen, there are policies in place at the Bureau of Corrections that deal with inmates having sex with corrections officers, and that they should internally deal with that issue. And then there are those that think like you, who are basically saying, well, no, it should be a criminal act because we're looking at our people who are there to take care of wards of the state.
Correct.
And in doing so, it doesn't include sexual relations with them.
Correct.
It's an interesting issue. I don't know.
I'll jump in here because I just don't understand how we even have to debate something like that. Something that's just totally unacceptable. First of all, in the Bureau of Corrections, they have policies and procedures to begin with. Okay? And to even go to that level, to even for a citizen to even think that something like that is happening in our Bureau of Corrections is just unacceptable, unheard of, and ridiculous. Well, I think for us to even think about trying to go to the legislature, I think it's over and beyond where we need to be.
I think it should be a crime just for thinking about it. I mean, why do you even want to have sex with an
ridiculous.
Inmate?
They need to be in there with the inmate as an inmate.
I agree.
Correct. So make it a felony.
It's
a what?
Make it a felony, not a misdemeanor, a felony.
Well, that brings me to my next point, our next hot topic: felonies versus misdemeanors. Is that really the issue at the Board of Elections as it pertains with
I think that's a red herring.
Senator Hansen?
That is just a red herring. I mean, everybody who's been listening has been hearing all of the back and forth, and they had some marathon hearing this past weekend, I understand, where the attorneys for both sides went back and forth, the VI Action Group against Senator Hansen. And I think they lost sight of the issue, which is based on what the law says, whether or not she was disqualified because it was a felony or moral turpitude. It's one or the other.
Actually, I don't really think that they lost sight of it. I think that they are fully aware of what the issue is and what their goal. When I say they, I mean the Board of Elections, and what they want to do is avoid the issue. So they talk about everything else as opposed to the main issue. Because really and truly, I agree with you, Natalie. The one question that needs to be asked that nobody is answering is this: the statute for which the senator has been convicted of, does it constitute a crime of moral turpitude? That's the only question.
And where is the definition for moral turpitude?
Well, now remember, there's this red herring that the VI doesn't have a definition.
I've heard that.
I've heard that.
It's a red herring because there's no such crime as a crime of moral turpitude. Let me put it a different way. I should say it that
Crime
way.
involving.
There's a crime involving moral turpitude, which means different crimes may constitute moral turpitude.
That's right.
And the issue isn't felony versus misdemeanor.
That's
the
right.
issue is whether her misdemeanor qualifies as a crime of moral turpitude.
Exactly.
Now, the courts have been very clear on this. The U.S. Supreme Court, as to every court I can come across, has been very clear. I've done the research. I've been very clear on it. Crimes that involve tax issues or theft or fraud are inherently moral turpitude crimes.
And I think the reason is very, very simple. It involves honesty, dishonesty.
So
It's just very simple.
So where's the hesitation on the part of the VA election system or even the judicial system to act and say, okay, definitely,
But
there's an infraction here.
But remember, the judicial system can't act without a live case and controversy brought to them.
Correct.
Okay? So they're like here on a periphery.
Then what about
But the Board of Elections, remember, their only role is to determine eligibility and certification. Okay? Now, remember last year, I think there was a challenge to Senator Henderson.
That was after she was elected.
After she was elected.
After
And
the
the provision that was used this time couldn't be used then because you have a certain amount of time after an initial certification to bring it to their attention.
Correct.
But remember, the Board of Elections can actually decertify anybody, even if you won. Remember, that was Matt Vilawetz. That's what happened to former Senator Matt,
Right.
Lieutenant Governor Matt. But they don't have the authority to remove them from the institution. Only the legislature can do that. So what they could have done was say, okay, we'll investigate this issue. Let's say we determine it's a crime of moral turpitude. Then they issue a letter to the Senate President decertifying her. And then it's up to the legislature now to act,
Exactly.
to remove her.
So you're basically saying there's a crime of the lack of intestinal fortitude and the VA Board of
Absolutely.
the election system.
Absolutely.
Well, we will pose that question
Yeah,
to
so a lot of this is what they're going to talk about.
proposing to come in, because that's what they're going to meet. Those are those who are successful.
Because
And it's-
what you have to remember is nobody is answering the one question that needs to be answered to proceed on. It is not an issue, as I see it, it is not an issue of felony versus misdemeanor. It's not an issue of whether you like her or you don't like her. It's an issue of whether the misdemeanor that she's been convicted of constitutes a crime of moral turpitude.
And I'll tell you why that's so important. We're looking at setting precedent here. You see, she's not the first or the last senator that may find themselves in that situation. And we have the younger generation coming behind that we really have to focus on. And so I believe that the Board of Elections has to step up to the plate here and address the issue head on. It's not about being liked or disliked. It's not personal. And I don't think it's about Senator Hansen personally. Okay, let's just take the face off of the person and just look at the fact that this is the issue we're faced with.
But I believe Judge Henderson Attorney Henderson made some rather salient points on this issue.
But you know what? I want to say something that I think a lot of people are missing, right? Because we always have this issue of only the legislature can remove her. Okay? So I went to look this up to see whether that was in fact the case. And ordinarily it is true that only the legislature can remove one of their own from the body. However, there is a district court case that Judge David O'Brien issued that said where and it was the same Matt Vilawetz, where the person in the legislature is sitting there illegally because of a violation of law, and the legislature is not acting, then anybody can bring that to the court, and the mandamus, and the court can order the action to be done. In this case, if in fact her crime constitutes a crime of moral turpitude, then she is violating the Revised Organic Act, not the election laws under Title 18. She's violating the Revised Organic Act, and the legislature is being compliant by allowing that violation of law to occur. That's the only exception that you have to removing somebody without legislative intent.
And you know what's interesting too is the constituents. What are their take on this? You know, are they lobbying their senators to do something about it? Are they sitting by complacently? Or if this just carries on into the elections and she's on the ballot again and it just goes forward and then that the people's voice speaks and they decide, well, we're putting her back because she's the only one doing something in there. I mean, you know, it just to me has a whole lot of nuances that can take place between now and November's around the corner, literally. I mean, we have a lot of lame duck
senators
all around the place here, so ain't a whole lot gonna get done.
5 of them.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, we won't go to the 5 of them tonight. But you know the funniest thing? If you listen to the airwaves, you're hearing different views. You're hearing there's a camp to have her out and there's a camp to let her remain. And what played out this weekend, you saw that the officers of the election system it was packed. People definitely were there because they had some interest in this matter.
Definitely.
Those for her and those against her.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I said it's going to probably play out in the general election.
But I don't think it needs to get to the general election. I think the posture needs to be somebody needs to file a declaratory judgment action to the court saying, can you please declare for us whether or not this specific tax crime constitutes a crime of moral turpitude?
Right.
The court answers the question. If the court says yes, it is, then it's done.
Provided they answer the question timely.
Well, not if you request it on an emergency basis, then you can get them to do. But you are correct.
Yeah.
But and then you proceed from there. I just don't see it happening. But at the end of the day, let's assume that they do nothing. She does win again. Nothing with her, even if she does win and sworn in, would ever preclude the election board from decertifying her.
Right, so
After they found out.
But what you have said, probably the lawyers who are advancing this particular group know exactly some of these case law and whatnot. But why has this issue dragged out for the past going on 2 years now?
Well, of course, because that's typical of how we tend to operate. We do something while it's hot on the plate, we drop it, and now it's back up again because elections are around the corner. So there's not a whole lot. I think I'm not too optimistic about a whole lot.
Well, I do know this: when we sit and we allow lawlessness to pervade our society, then regular people, and it's done by people who should be our leaders, then regular people go out and do what they want, like what happened this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And one of the things that I want to make sure people understand is that there's a distinction here, because it's not an issue about felony versus misdemeanor.
Right.
I think people are getting caught up in that, and it really is. It doesn't matter what it was. It's either a felony or a crime involving moral turpitude.
Correct.
So that crime involving moral turpitude could either
much
be
broader.
Exactly. It could be a felony. It could be a misdemeanor.
Correct.
And in this particular case, we know we're talking about a misdemeanor.
Right.
So that's clear.
And I can see why she's fighting so hard, because it forever bars you from being in the legislature. You could never be in the legislature again. That's what the Revised Organic Act says.
Yeah.
And so it's not that you could come back later or want to get your vote back. She can her right to vote can be restored, but she will be forever barred from being in the legislature. I can see why she's fighting so hard to not have that determined like that. But I don't know. In my opinion and in my view, my understanding of the law, I think she's fighting an uphill battle when it comes to that, because tax crimes are inherently moral turpitude crimes. The case laws are very clear on that issue. Yes, it is a local statute, but there's case law that says because it is identical to the federal statute, the definition of that, you go to the federal law for that. And the federal law defines it as a crime of moral turpitude.
And to top it off, though, I remembered when this came up before and she took the stand and testified, she related that this is more or less similar to
a traffic ticket.
Or some senators who are in the same body with her who are having extramarital relations. But as far as I know, I don't know that to be in the law against the law. Not that I know
it's
of.
not.
But what Attorney Henderson said
So,
is that she's fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, she's fighting an uphill battle.
From where you're standing, I don't think she's fighting an uphill battle.
Well,
because
in other words, eventually it's going to happen. I mean, she may be able to stall it as long as she can, but it's going to happen.
But you know what, gentlemen? At the end of the day, like I said before, it's not about the senator.
Right.
It's not about her. I mean, she may be the one that happens to be in that hot seat at this point in time. But what we're looking at is what ultimately will affect the people of the Virgin Islands and the younger generation that's coming forward, who also wants to take office. That they have to set. We're going to be either setting a precedent here, one way or the other.
It's going to be very interesting. And so we have 3 people here today who are going to be running for a seat on the Board of Elections, and it'd be great to hear what they have to say. And
course.
we have some more hot topics after the end of the show
That's
we will
right.
come back to, because we got some more stuff to talk about.
Sure.
But when we return, we will have with us Mr. EP Fan Joseph. We'll be back in a moment. Good evening and welcome back. We are here now with Mr. EP Fan Joseph, who is vying for a seat on the Board of Elections in the 2012 election. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. What we wanted to do here at VI Voices was to actually highlight some of the races that most people don't really think about, but that we thought was really important, was actually crucial to our moving forward in a positive light. And one of those races, of course, the Board of Elections race. Now, you know, there's been some major issues with the Board of Elections in recent time.
Yeah.
And so why would you want to even sit on the Board of Elections?
Well, the last 3 years I have been attending the regular district as well as the joint board meeting. And just because of what I saw and the way I saw the business of the board being conducted, I was forced to be vocal about their procedures and the entire working of the Board of Election. As a result of that, I decided it makes no sense to just sit back and criticize. I decided to offer myself. I think I have the integrity to be able to run. I have lived in this community for almost all my life. And I think I have the integrity and the ability to represent the people of New Orleans and to make sure that everybody's vote is counted.
Besides the reforms that have already been proposed, people talk about we need transparency, getting rid of the machines and all of those other stuff. What other sort of reforms you will propose to bring about widespread change and encourage participation in the system in terms of voting?
There are lots of laws that are already on the books, but they are not being adhered to. One of them is the identification of the candidate on the ballot. That's a law, it's there. But the board is not enforcing that law. And most people go to the poll and they vote on, they go on these archaic machines and they just press numbers and stuff like that. And they don't know who they're voting on. And some of our people are not literate enough to know the name, but at least if they see a picture. These are one of the policies that I would like to see happen. I also would like to, this would take the legislature, but I would like to see a permanent live registration of voters. I think it is a mockery for people to vote, to register to vote, and in 2 years, because they because they missed 2 elections, then they purge them out, and then they have to go through the whole procedure and vote again. I think it is ridiculous. I don't think that there is any other place where that procedure is that policy is in place.
So what would you propose?
I would propose that whenever you register to vote, you register for life. And whenever you are moving, that does not mean to say the law. You are only allowed to vote one place. You can vote 2 places at a time. When the person gets ready to move, he or she moves and requests for the same way the policy.
But wouldn't that pose some problems? What if that person runs into problems that makes them ineligible at some point in the future for voting? How would you address weeding them out or finding out who they are? Or, you know what I'm saying?
I think the same procedure, the same policy that exists now. Because if somebody becomes a felon, the Justice Department is supposed to report to the Board of Election. If somebody dies, I think the Department of Statistics report to the board.
You think that's working effectively here in the Virgin Islands? Realistically? Or you're assuming that it's working the way it's supposed
to? But I don't think that it is.
Well, you mentioned something. You said that you used the word felon. And so, we were here discussing in the last segment, the hot topics was this issue with moral turpitude.
Yes.
Now, what if you were to be successful? How do you plan on dealing with that issue if that issue is still there when you are in office?
I heard you before, and I heard you a while ago explain on the crime of moral turpitude. I think you are clear. I think that it is as clear as ABC. I think that's one of the reasons why I want to be on the board, because I think that the integrity of the board has been compromised. The supervisor of election, the members of the board of election. I listened to Mr. Ross as the chairman of both boards, the district as well as the joint board, says that, and when the issue came up by Mr. Springer challenging the eligibility of Ms. Hanson while sitting, he said that the board conducted their own individual, they conducted their own investigation, and also they had the privilege of having a member of the board who is an attorney. I guess he was referring to Ms. Lisa Harris Moorhead, who was supposed to be here. I would have loved to see her here. And I wish we had a debate and she would have been here to ask her this question. But he said that they among themselves investigated. But the thing is that going to all the meetings, at no time was there a formal investigation where they viewed the record of the court to know what exactly Ms. Hanson was charged and convicted of. They never presented a formal report, and still they went about. I remember at the meeting, and they using that the roll call of that meeting where the chairman, and I am a past president of the USVI Soccer Federation, and I know when the president or the chairman of a meeting relinquishes his seat to another person and came as a regular, because the chairman cannot move a motion. He relinquished his seat and he moved the motion, saying that at the time of Hanson's registration and election, she was a legal voter, and the motion was moved, and with the exception of both Brian, they all voted for it, and now she is still there, and we are still stuck with it. If I were to be elected and the issue remains, I would have no choice. It's somebody that I have supported, we're good friends. I would have to move according to the law. I think the law for moral turpitude involves dishonesty. And if you have an individual, a lawmaker, sitting in office and for 19 years, and the details of the case that came out did not pay her taxes and still was on probation at the time she ran, she couldn't be a voter to begin with, much less being a candidate. And she ran, she won, and the election board know about all these things and turn a blind eye.
Now, go ahead.
Mr. Joseph,
Yeah.
the issue of Senator Hanson and all the things surrounding her, that's a great platform to run on.
Yes.
A wonderful platform to run, to basically be against it. Now, let's put that aside.
Okay.
Senator Hanson's issue has gone,
Okay.
and you get elected to the VI board of election.
Okay.
How do you see you're going to effect change in terms of, besides, you mentioned one thing, what other things you're going to do to make sure to inspire the people to come out and vote, because there's some apathy?
I think the district board is, to me, well, since we took the board with the recall petition, I am a member of the VI Action Group. Since we took the issue of the recall, a lot of things came out. And talking about the distinction between the joint board and the district board, I see the joint board as more of a ministerial body to run voting registration drives and stuff like that. And if policies like that would be more transparent and make sure that there is no conflict of interest. I cannot believe that a member of the board is one of the members of the board is the same person who is the administrator of St. Croix. In other jurisdictions, he would be the mayor. And he's a member of the board. You have the lieutenant governor, chief of staff, is a member of the board. And I'm talking about in the person of Datsun James and Raymond William. And then you have one of the legal representatives of the legislature, Lisa Harris Moorhead, is a member of the board. What more conflict of interest you?
Well, Mr. Joseph, we are out of time tonight, but we thank you for coming onto the show. I think this is an interesting race. I think that you are somebody that clearly is showing a desire to bring some change, and people probably should look at you, and hopefully you'll be able to get out to people as well. How can people find you if they wanted to get some information more about you?
Well, you can find me by calling my telephone number is 340-718-2463. My email address is epiphaneej@gmail.com.
Good. All right.
Thank you.
I'm
And good
available
luck.
to you at any time. Call me, ask me any question. I'll be very happy to answer. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When we return, we will have Mr. Roland Molnar. Good evening, and we are back here on VI Voices. As you know, we are covering the Board of Elections race, and we have some people who are running for that office. Right now, we have Mr. Roland Molinar, who is seeking a seat on the Board of Elections in the 2012 election, who will also be a part of the primary in 2012, this coming September 8th. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Molinar. How are you? Welcome to VI Voices.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely.
My name is Roland Molinar. I'm running for the Board of Election. And I'll also do my best to make change.
What made you decide to throw your hat in the ring? What made you decide to throw your hat in the ring?
I'm also a member of the VI Action Group, and I got involved when we first started doing the recall petition against the board, and I, got around, see all the people of the Virgin Islands, saw what they basically thought about the subject, and everybody just had enough.
Besides being a member of the Action Group, what other preparation, what other things do you think prepared you to seek this elected office?
Well, I'm a conservation enforcement officer for the Department of Planning and Natural Resources. I basically enforce for the department, and I have, when we're in discussion, I always talk about the procedures that we have to deal with when we're dealing with the local fishermen or boat owners and so forth. So, we have our fishery hand guide, which is just rules and procedures, and we also have our what do you call it? Yeah, I think that's it. We have the rules and regulations for fisheries, and we also have the rules and regulations for boating procedures, safe boating, and so forth. And those two Bibles, I go by with my department, and that is what helped me to do that job.
So are you safe? Is it safe to say on my part that I can draw inference that basically you see there's a lack of enforcement, a lack of follow-through in the part of policy and the present board, and because that is somewhat missing or lacking, you're hoping to bring that to the board?
Yeah, that's correct. But with those pamphlets, those brochures that we have in my department, it helps to govern, these guys. And, it's nothing wrong with bringing that into the Board of Election. And
But when
that's
you
what I've
say
been
bring what into board elections? Do you mean bring, so the audience is clear, you're not saying bring the code book from VPNR into,
No,
you're talking about bringing that accolade or that characteristic you have of following rules and procedures into elections.
Correct.
Well, which I think is important because I think I'm not sure if we're at the crossroads. I was, a couple years ago, I would say we're at a crossroads. I think we're beyond crossroads at this point, where we are in a system now where, in my opinion, and it's my opinion, we're almost venturing on North Korea, where, people are doing what they want. You can't say what you want. You can't be trusted. You can't trust the system to understand whether or not your vote is in fact your vote. You have no idea what's happening. Things are blaringly being done with no recourse for what's happening. And it wasn't like that before. And so my question to you is, it's going to take a lot of fortitude and strength to be a part of that, because sometimes what's popular isn't always what is right, is not what's always popular. And you're going to have to make those kinds of decisions. Are you ready to make those kinds of decisions?
I am, and I have, which I will be publishing soon or putting out there to the public, on my platform, what my platform is. And basically I have like 24 points on my, that will be on my platform.
Give us a
priority.
priority.
Like 3.
Basically, we know that the number 1 issue is the new electronic voting machines that are EAC certified with voter verification, which includes use of a ballot paper, right? Petition legislature for formation of ethic committee. Establish, implement, enforce policies and procedures to administer consequences to board members who violate voters' rights, and that's it's under establish, enforce new policies and procedures, and that's like 14 underneath that. I'm not going to repeat all of that.
May I ask a question again? This popped into my head. Credentials. Ever so often we've been toying with this idea that some offices need some minimum credentials other than just being 18 and being able to, and having the age requirement. Do you see that somewhere in the life of the board, even if you're elected, or even if you're still on the sideline with VI Action Group, advocating for certain standards for certain public office as we move forward?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, for instance, to sit on the board of education, do you need certain credentials to be there? To be governor of the Virgin Islands, so you certainly have some minimum credentials to be in the legislature. And think about all the issues that these offices deal with. And they're not just going to make legislation. You have to understand budgets, you have to do some higher level thinking. Do you think that we should have some minimum, some credentials?
I don't know how to answer that question, but what you're asking is like what? You need a resume?
No, should you have some college education to be governor?
Minimum
No,
qualification.
I don't think so.
But you see, but that's a good question though, Clint, because, and I don't know if that credentialing would be for every office, but I can tell you one office I think it should be for. It should be for the Board of Education.
Okay.
Because I don't see how people can be certifying me. If let's say I am a teacher, I went to college, I have my master's degree, I have my PhD, or whatever I have, and the people who are going to be certifying me or setting curriculum for me to teach have nothing. I mean, I'm not to demean any person. I'm just saying that there's a certain art to curriculum building. There's a certain art to setting up credentialing of teachers that is just not normal. In other words, I don't send a non-lawyer to the courthouse to represent people. Correct. Do you understand? Correct. And so how do we send people who have absolutely no knowledge in curriculum instruction or curriculum building,
pedagogy, all of that stuff,
to send to create those programs for teachers?
But think about this. The vastness of the duties of the legislature also have them setting curricula. So that's why I posed this question.
But what I wanted to ask Roland, that is a very good question, but I noticed the candidate before you and now you talk about integrity, as a characteristic that seems to be overwhelming. Why do you think that's so important, particularly in the Board of Elections?
From the things you witness, it's just, when the things you see in there is just very ridiculous, and it's just, I don't know how to go along with that one. I don't know how to answer that one. All I'm saying is, it's just what they do and what they say, it's two different things.
Well, Clint asked Mr. Joseph a very good question. I think we should ask all of them. So I'm going to ask you, what, if you are successful, what are you going to do in that office to reduce voter apathy? Get people back to coming to vote again, to want to be a part of the process again.
Especially
for me, it's just, following the law. What's there in the books, what's there. If they would just only follow the law, everything would be okay. And that's what, it just seems like they're just doing and making up things as they go along. And that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm witnessing.
Well, any last minute things you want to, we're running out of time, so any last minute things you want to tell the audience so that on September 8th in the primary, that they can make a decision as to whether or not to vote for you?
Yeah, I'm basically all I just want for them to do is basically, for us to do when we get in there is to develop and maintain and have available printed brochures, information pamphlets, flyers for the public as it pertains to all matters involving the election system. For example, voter registration initiatives, recall procedures, duties, responsibilities of the board supervisor and the board of supervisor of election complaint procedures, etc. This information should also be available online. We do not live in the dark ages anymore. We live in the 21st century, and we need to act as such.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because when it's supposed to be online, it's supposed to be up and running. I just try to get on and it's offline.
Oh my
Board of Elections, get it together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We will be back with Miss Krista Schluterman.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to our viewers, and we have our next candidate for the Board of Elections, Krista Schluterman.
Yes,
Did I get it right?
Yes, thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you for being here.
Good night,
And,
thank you.
Well, of course, we want to get right into it. You decided to throw your hat in the ring. Is this your first time?
Yes, absolutely, for any type of political position.
And I know during the break we talked and you indicated that you are one of the members of the VI Action Group.
Yes, I became a member once I had taken it upon myself to file a recall petition on a single sitting senator to drive home the absurdity of the threshold. There's no way that you can have 44,000 signatures among 25,000 registered voters. And we got together on that.
Ms. Schluterman, there have been two other candidates that sat in that chair prior to you sitting there. And all of them before you were members of the VI Action Group. Is that a new political party within the Virgin Islands? Because I'm realizing that you're not just out there rah-rah, you're also saying, okay, we are also going to be a part of the solution. So tell me more about that group and how you hope your work in that group is going to help you to bring about change in the Board of Elections.
We're a team of people who care. We're a team of people who want to make change, and we're a team of people who have the wherewithal to do it. There's 16 of us, and there'll be times when it gets a little rough. It's quite rough, but we have each other to pull us back up and into it and keep going forward. We've got to resolve these issues.
If you were elected, what would be the first issue that you're going to tackle in the Board of Elections?
Policy. There's absolutely no policy. I was at the elections office a couple weeks ago, and actually last Friday I delivered a letter to the elections office asking how it is that we have two candidates who have not yet filed their campaign disclosure reports. One of those senators is running again. Now, we know that they know that they're late because one senator got a bill for $480 for being late. These other two senators have not gotten a bill yet. How can a senator be allowed to run if they owe, let's say it's $5,000 now? That's our money. So they're going to continue to just look the other way on these issues, and we need to have these resolved. We need policy in place for sure.
One thing that's going to be important for me in this election is the issue of voter apathy, because for all of the push and information that the Action Network group or any group like that will put forward there, it really falls for naught if people don't go out and vote. And so if you are elected, what are you going to do to help to decrease that voter apathy that we have here in the territory?
I believe that as being a part of the VI Action Group right now, we are doing that. We are showing people that you got to keep chipping away, and we're going to get to the place where it's all right, it's all well, it's all good, that your vote really does count. And that's where we're headed. We just want things to be right. So I think once we show people that we can get there, people are going to want to participate in an election because they're going to feel like their vote actually counts the way it was cast.
How would you use, besides the machines, how would you use technology to bring about some change in the system? And I'm going to give you one, if I may. I'm a voter. I've somewhat always been displeased that the Board of Elections stopped registering voters 1 month prior to the primary and 1 month prior to the general election. How would you help technology or incorporate technology to make that time shorter, to allow more voters to register closer to the primary and closer to the election?
Well, I was at one of their election drives that they had in Gallows Bay, and there were 3 board members sitting at a table with election registration cards. No photo equipment. So the people I've talked to in the community, are you a registered voter? Are you a registered voter? Well, I did the paperwork, but I haven't gone in for my photo. So I think we have technology that you can sit at a voter's registration table and take a photograph and make it a one-step process. That to me was just, I was surprised. I was surprised. And I don't quite understand why we need to have a photo on a voter's registration card. Maybe people are using that for ID, then I think we need to go to ID cards. I think we would have more voters if it wasn't such a hassle to get registered to vote.
What do you think the role is of the District Board of Elections?
The District Board of Elections is the one who makes the rules for both districts. And right now, the way we're seeing it is St. Croix is making their own choices and making their own rules and making their own decisions. That's not their job. It is for the district board to set the rules and the policies.
You mean the joint board?
The joint board,
Right.
excuse me, thank you. To set the rules and the policy for each district. We're not seeing that.
But you know, as you said that, do we need such a large board? I think there's 6 members in St. Croix.
I think it's 7 and 7.
And 7 in the
7
St.
and
Thomas
7.
and St. John area. I mean, we have states, for Arlington, in Virginia, for example. Why do we need so many people? And for example, I heard they complain about, locally that is, the Board of Elections, a fiscal crisis. I think they had a $200,000 budget last year to work with. The similar Board of Elections in Virginia had about $16,000 with three persons on it. Why do you think that we need to be effective, so many bodies sitting and such a large budget?
I would say that we should be expected not to have that many, but the fact given that how long has our Board of Elections been in operation and they still have no policy, there's a lot of work to do. And I do think it's important right now, until we get down to the nitty-gritty, to all the details and clarify all the issues, I think we should have that many people. It would be similar to writing your Constitution with only 15 people. You need more right now.
So I'm hearing you saying it's more about quantity than quality.
No. Because I do think that we have people we have some now that have been in the board for quite a few years, that it's going to be an integrated and community and a joint effort to clear up these issues. The thing that I like about the board it's not a paying position that is off the charts, okay? So if you look at it dollar-wise, you really get your value out of a board member if they're working for you.
But let me ask this. If, in fact, there is a joint, and honestly, I've never understood this. If there is, in fact, a joint boards of education, of elections, that is designed to set policies and do all these other things, why do we have to have district boards? I never understood that purpose.
There should be one, because you look at last year's election, St. Thomas, St. John was permitted to use paper ballots.
Well, no, and that's my point.
So we need, that's what I'm saying, St. Croix is making their own decisions without the district board.
Let me ask it. My question really was, if there's a joint board that sets the policy, what's the purpose of having district boards? If the joint board sets the policy, then there should just be workers in each district that executes what the joint board has done. I just think it's an extra layer of confusion. But when you have two districts can make policies, and then these same two districts are the people that come together to be the joint boards. If the joint board of election were completely different people that did not sit on the district boards, okay, I get that. But the district board, the joint board, as I understand it comprises the same very people in each district. And it just seems like a waste of money to me, actually, and lends itself to confusion.
And it has lent itself to confusion. You're absolutely right. Look at what we are now. Look at what we're dealing with. So we have St. Thomas, St. John, they want to do new machines. St. Croix doesn't. The district board, the joint board should be making that decision and not each of us. And I agree.
And the chair of the St. Croix district is also the chair of the joint boards. But you're saying to me that St. Croix doesn't want new machines, but St. Thomas, St. John does?
But are we then missing shouldn't it be representation of the people and for the people and by the people?
I completely agree.
And the masses in St. Croix district clamoring for reform, clamoring for more machines, and then the elected representatives on the board are not, in a sense, bringing forth
they're
their
not
will.
responding.
The voice of the people.
They're not adhering to the will of the people.
Let's be very real about it. I've said it before, I will say it all the time. Every fight in this community begins with the people on St. Croix. It's very clear, and I mean, I have no scientific support for it, other than that's my belief, that every fight and thing that leads to some kind of change begins with the people on St. Croix.
But part of the problem that we have is that the voice of the people is what's supposed to be overwhelming.
Yes.
And you all seeking positions are servants of the
Yes,
people.
absolutely.
But a lot of times it gets flip-flopped the other way, and after
Correct,
the
it does.
persons are voted in and get those positions, they
They do their own
forgot
thing.
that they're there as servants to do the will of the people.
Absolutely. You go to an elections meeting, to a board meeting, and you cannot speak. There's got to be a change in that. There's got to be the voice of the people, and I think that the groups that I have gone with, in the meetings I have gone to, the constant wanting to participate and wanting to speak is there, and they will not let us.
So if you get in, we're going to have to look out for you in terms of enforcing
And to
or making
open
those
up that
policy changes.
Absolutely.
And we will
It
hold
needs
you
to
to
be
that.
there.
We sure
Please
will.
We
do.
do that on VI Voices.
Great. Please do.
We are running out of time, but is there any last minute thing you want to tell the audience as to why they should vote for you?
Good night, y'all. I have done a lot of research in our elections office over here in St. Croix, and there are a lot of issues that are not being addressed that must be addressed. It's too long, it's too late for some of them, but we can still go forward. Let's take care of these issues now. And I'm looking forward to being your representative.
Thank you so much for being on VI Voices.
Thank you.
We wish you much luck.
Thank you.
September.
Thank
All
you.
right? We'll be back.
Appreciate it.
We'll be back in a
Appreciate
minute.
it.
And we are back here at VI Voices. Tonight we had a really great discussion with at least three of the candidates for the Board of Elections this year. We had Mr. Epifan Joseph, we had Roland Molinar, and Krista Schluterman with us tonight. I thought it was a very interesting show.
Very, very interesting indeed. And one of the things I have to say, I'm going to have to give credit, some big ups to the VA Action Group and to its membership for at least stepping up to the plate and
Yeah.
trying to do their best to effectuate change
Yeah.
in one area that they see needs remedied.
Yeah.
And I do hope at least one or two, because they're definitely taking a team approach
Yeah.
to solving some of our long-standing issues.
We definitely have to monitor
And
that.
what
Definitely.
we really, really need is people in there who have the forthrightness to do what needs to be done. It's not about popularity. You might have to make some hard decisions, but you got to do what got. And I'm glad I heard that from each of the candidates that we had this evening. They all had that drive or that willingness to do what it takes.
And they
I
have
wanna-
spent some time researching the position.
Yeah.
Right.
I do hope, I'm going to give them one charge. I think they need to definitely address that conflict of interest issue.
Oh, absolutely.
And make sure that's a policy and they hold our members accountable. And that's one of the things
I completely
I'm
agree,
trying to
because there are some who were on the Board of Elections, but they were running for party offices
Yes.
or running at different places, and I agree. I think that creates conflict of interest issues.
I'm so glad you said that, because the other day there was an issue. They had a lack of quorum in the St. Thomas St. John board because so many people are running.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough people to do the work.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it just, everything is all over the place. So we need to see some uniformity. We need to see some enforcement, and we really need to see just things in order so that it sets the tone. I mean, Board of Elections to me should be one of the primary institutions that we look towards, because it sets the tone for everything.
Correct.
Voting
It does.
is so critical.
Well, it definitely should be one of those places where when you look at it, you see objectivity, and you see and you believe that whatever the decisions are going to be decisions that are going to be based on fairness and impartiality. Because it's your vote, your right to vote, which is a fundamental right that's
Exactly.
protected for each person.
And at the end of the day, people want to know that not only their vote counts, but it is legitimate in terms of
Yeah.
their voice being heard,
Yeah.
and it's their actual voice.
Correct.
I think that is so important.
Very important. And
So
that's
important.
And what's so refreshing is that none of these aspirants appear to be establishment candidates.
I noticed that.
And
Very
that's
good. I
refreshing.
like
And
that.
that's
Yeah,
a good
that's
thing.
good.
Yes.
Well, there's at least one of them. He's not an established candidate, but he does come from
A notable family?
large political family that has played major role in this territory. And I'm sure
And then
he's
he's
probably very proud
also,
of him.
young, up and coming. I think that's what we need. Just some of the changes of diversity of people getting in there and throwing their heads in. And so, I think it's going to be a good race.
Yeah, I think so
It's gonna
too.
be a
I wish
really
them
good
all
race.
luck.
Yeah, and tomorrow night we're going to have with us members who are running for the Board of Education. Now that's going to be also interesting, because it's one of those races where we don't look at that much, but it plays a major role.
Definitely.
And I think there's a direct correlation between crime and education.
Oh, most definitely.
And so that's what I'm going to be looking for when I'm deciding who I'm going to vote for Board of Education. But we have them coming on tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully it'll be as interesting as tonight was.
This tonight was very interesting.
Very interesting, and we discussed some major hot topics as well, and we'll definitely going to monitor here at VI Voices. We'll monitor what is going on with that lawsuit. We'll definitely monitor what's happening with the Board of Elections and their determinations on this issue
Right.
regarding moral turpitude. I believe that we definitely will be discussing this again here on VI Voices. I would
Definitely.
love to have somebody from elections come. I would love to have Senator Henson here. I don't mind asking people questions I need to ask. And so hopefully we'll get to the bottom of this, because this show is designed to educate and enlighten people.
Amen.
That's what we want. And we don't have to agree on ideology, but we at least have to discuss the issue.
Definitely, let's discuss it.
Okay, so another great evening of VI Voices. You can't go wrong here.
Can't go wrong.
Definitely
Keep
not.
tuning in.
Let's remember
More to
that
come.
your voice can make a difference. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.